Welcome to my podcast for October 1st, 2024. This is my first podcast content other than the simple greeting message I posted the other day. So we are here to talk about truth, and I am not going to make this all about relative truth or absolute truth, but it will tend to be much more oriented towards absolute truth, since I hold to that as being what truth is. Part of the reason I am interested in this, there's two things actually. When I was a child growing up in our house, it was always imperative that you told the truth. If you got caught telling a lie, there were always consequences. And I think that's something we need to learn at a young age, that as we grow older, the consequences grow, because usually the lies get bigger. There are times in my life where I have lied. I have not been perfect. Sometimes we lie to make ourselves look better. Sometimes we lie to keep ourselves out of trouble. But there's always those moments where we make poor choices. And when we get caught in those poor choices, then we suffer those consequences. So today we're going to just talk about something relatively easy. Since this is my first one, I thought I'd be a little easy on myself right out of the gate. So this is what we're going to talk about. We are in this election season, and there's all sorts of things on social media. Oh my goodness gracious. Things that people say, things that they post, little memes, little quotes, whatever. And some of it is so bad. If we take a look at some of my least favorite ones, these are some that I've seen over and over again in the last several months. And if we look at these, we look at them and we say, oh, yeah, I agree with that one. The one with the blue background is trying to make the point that things are much better now than they were 4 years ago. But there's so much that's wrong with that, and we'll take a look at that in just a minute. The one on the right, the orange pinkish one, at least they put a date on there and try to give it some context of time as to what those say. But still, that's I'm not quite sure if they were off there. They're off by the numbers. But the point that I want to make, though, is that we have to be truthful in whatever we say, and we can't just pick random values out of the air. If we're going to speak something, if we're going to post something, we're going to write something, especially if we're putting it out there for other people to see, we need to make every effort to make sure that it is true, correct, to the best of our ability, and not simply grasp it at whatever sounds good. The other side of that is when we read those things, we have to be discerning and say, hey, is this really true? We cannot accept everything that we see as being true. And we've gotten really bad at that. We, being just people in general, have gotten really bad at reading stuff on social media and just saying, oh wow, I like that, so I'm going to share that with my friends, my list. The news media is not a whole lot better. They've stepped away from doing true journalism and speaking what's really going on, and there's a lot more editorializing and opinions involved in the news. Biases everywhere. Doesn't matter which side you're on. Liberal, conservative, the news outlets are all the same. They put a spin on the news that they report. But if we go back to our two pieces of information here, let's take the first one. It says 4 years ago the Dow was at 19,000. Well, if we are to go to see here, the Dow Jones chart. These are a bunch of charts, and we'll look at some of these. But this is the Dow Jones charts. It goes back to, 2011. And if we try to find the last place that we were at 19,000 was somewhere around late December of 2016. So that's like 8 years ago. That's twice the 4 years that the Post says. If we come back and take a look at this, it says 4 years ago unemployment was 9.2, and if we go back to see, there's an unemployment here somewhere. There it is, unemployment. The last time we saw 9.2 was somewhere in the late July, early August of 2020. So that's almost right, depending on when they actually posted this, but that doesn't match up with the 19,000 that they claim is on the Dow Jones. And so we get to this place where we just look at those and we say, oh, that sounds good, without ever questioning them. And we should question things, because people are twisting the truth. They're telling lies. There's this whole concept of relative truth. And if you look at the my website, I'm sorry, there, on the homepage there's just a short blurb about relative and absolute truth. And so that kind of, I won't go into all that there, but we run into that place of absolute truth, and not being held to that. So when we look at this in general, I went clear back to January of 2009, when President Obama was inaugurated, and we take a look at several numbers. Inflation, when he took office, was 3.8. The end of September, it's now 2.5, and there's all these numbers here in between. The Dow Jones Industrial, I've seen several people that have posted, what do you mean inflation? The Dow Jones is doing so wonderfully, and the reality is that the Dow Jones is not necessarily an overall predictor of the health of the economy. You can see here, when President Biden was inaugurated, the Dow Jones was at 30,000, and inflation was at 4.7. So anytime that we take numbers, just pick a number at a specific point in time, it's hard. Because these numbers are constantly changing day in and day out. Just day after day, the Dow Jones Industrial Average changes. Unemployment averages changes, although it's not reported every single day. Mortgage rates change all the time. And so to grab a number at just a singular point in time, you can do that, and that's actually what we did with this chart. This was, I tried to get as close as I could to the 1st of January with these numbers, and the 31st of December for all of these. And so we picked out these just point in time, a one day. We look at this and we say, okay, so President Obama, he had anywhere from 3.8% inflation to 1.3 over the 8 years that he was in office. But in reality, if we were to go and take a look at the charts, let's see, where's my inflation? It's here somewhere. Inflation's over here. If we look, actually, this only goes back to 14. So President Obama also had some really good years where it was under 1% inflation, and that doesn't show up when we grab that one number or two numbers a year, or two numbers every 4 years. By the same token, President Biden had a 2021 where we had 7% inflation, in 2022 where we had 6.3, and it's again, this idea of just grabbing a single number out of nowhere to try to represent that. See, nowhere in President Obama's. I mean, the closest it gets is 1.3. That's almost half a percentage point different from the 0.7. And the same with President Trump. He has these numbers on the beginning and the end. And President Biden, like I say, does not show the 7% inflation and the 6.5%, and so we have to be careful in how we use numbers. We have to be careful at what we look at, and how it all works. And it's not really hard. I put the URLs here of where I got the data. So the commodity prices for bread, milk, cheese, the gasoline came off of, this is a federal website, a government website, Bureau of Labor Statistics. The unemployment numbers I got from the same place. The inflation data I got from a commercial website, but they were using the Bureau of Labor Statistics data to generate these numbers. The mortgage rates came from the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis. So you can find those numbers now. Yeah, not everybody has the time to everything they see on Facebook. They go, let me go do a Google search and chase down all these numbers, all these facts. But the point being that question things. Do not accept anything that somebody tells you, or yes, especially the news. They all have a bias. They all put their own spin on it, and it's really, really sad, but that's what they do, and it's not good. If we were to go to some of these other charts, this was the inflation chart. This is the Dow Jones. This one only goes back to 2011. But you see kind of this upward trend with a few downward spikes. Here's some. This was in President Obama's term. This was President Trump's term. And so if we look at that, that's March 6th of 2020. That would be when COVID was first. We were starting to talk about shutdowns and all of that kind of stuff. So we have all of these. This is the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, kind of a downward trend. Although in the last couple of years, since it kind of bottomed out here in 2021, we got up there to what was that, 7.44, and this is the end of September at 6.08. So you can see these numbers change constantly, and all of these. This is the average price of bread through the years. So if we go to 2009, which is about the time President Obama took office, $1.41 for a loaf of bread, and today it's $1.95, and some of that's due to the inflation, and we have not received pay raises to keep up with the inflation, so that's why it's hurting it's hurting us in the pocketbook. I will point out that here was the beginning of President Trump's term, and here was the end. He actually had a pretty decent run, but don't want to turn this into a political thing. But you can look at these and find out lots of interesting stuff about what has happened historically. This is the price of eggs. Not sure why they spiked back here a year and a half ago. The same thing with ground beef. This is price of milk. again, there was some downtime and then some real spikes. And I'm not an economist, and I'm not an agricultural wizard to be able to tell you why maybe what was going on either in the industry or in the economy that causes these spikes. And that's we aren't interested in that today. This is chicken breast. This is unemployment, and this is kind of a wild and crazy graph, but again, it changes all the time, and we don't see this if we go back and we look at the unemployment. For President Trump, it was between 4.7 and 6.7, and if we were to actually look at the chart, if we were to actually look at the chart, where to go? Oh, here it is. Excuse me. We see that actually during President Trump's term, it did jump up to 14.8. Now this was the impact of COVID. When everybody got laid off and people were having to work from home and all of that. And so again, we look at these numbers. Now you could grab this number and say, oh yeah, President Trump suffered a 14.8% unemployment. Well, that's not really true in the entirety of the whole thing. If we go back to here's January of 17, 4.7, and then when President Trump left, it had come back down to 2020 end of 6.7. So yeah, you could say that about President Trump, but at the same time, we have to look at this continuum, and so it's about being truthful, I guess, really being truthful, and not simply trying to make your point. Everybody's got a point to make, and everybody wants you to believe that they're right and everything else is wrong. So, but I just want to encourage people to be true and honest, and not only in what we say, but what we see and what we believe, because it's we need truth out there, because it's important. So if you like this video, please go to patmcclanahan.com. That's my website. It has all of my content will be posted there. It also has links to the social media sites where I will post. If you go to YouTube or Facebook or X or Instagram, please like and follow me, build up my following so I can get more followers. Anyway, hopefully you learned something today. Thank you for coming, and I will close with saying that's the truth. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.